Привit, moi, druzy. That's Ukrainian for hello, my friends. And uh, a lot of us have learned some Ukrainian over the last year, and we've learned a lot about Ukraine over the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad year that this year was. And my apologies to the author of the book from which I stole the title for this particular video. You don't deserve to be tied to Vladimir Putin. So what I want to do today is I want to spend some time with you looking at what happened 1 year ago today. We're going to look at RT playing its video of what happened with the special military operation that Vladimir Putin has ordered. And then we'll look at Zelensky's speech. And then I'm going to try to give you an analogy of how I think things have gone. So stay with me. Let's go to RT right now. So here's RT, and we'll see what they have to say, and I'll stop periodically.
It all comes after Vladimir Putin has ordered a special military operation, saying the aim is to defend the people of Donbass from genocide by the Ukrainian military.
Okay, defend them from genocide by the Ukrainian military, with your own genocide, apparently.
Those comments fly in stark contrast to those of his Western partners. Putin, meantime, stressing Russia has no designs on occupation.
No designs on occupation. Well, you did have designs on occupation, and you couldn't do it.
I have decided to conduct a special military operation. We do not plan to occupy Ukrainian territories.
They didn't plan to occupy. They planned to set up a puppet government and then withdraw and have that all taken care of. So he's kind of telling the truth, even if he's not.
The Russian Defense Ministry says direct fighting with Ukraine soldiers has largely been avoided so far, and that safe exit routes are being arranged. Those forces to leave the operation zones. And the Kremlin right now actually issuing an order to treat Ukrainian soldiers with respect.
Did you hear that? They issued an order to treat Ukrainian soldiers with respect. Would hate to see what it was like, what the order would be like to treat them with disrespect, given the way that they have acted over the last terrible, horrible, no good, very bad year.
Meantime, the latest from the capital there, Kiev cuts off diplomatic ties with Russia and urges the West to build an anti-Putin coalition. While the US and its allies slam the Kremlin's operation as a barbaric attack and vow the harshest of sanctions.
And they did get the harshest of sanctions, and it has had a stunning effect on Russian behavior, as noted in the speech just a day or two ago, where he was saying, well, we're building all these lines to China and the Middle East, all these roads, because you can't sell your stuff to the West anymore. So, oops.
Well, the world awoke today to a huge military escalation in Ukraine. The Russian president insists it's a peacekeeping mission, but...
Peacekeeping mission. Does anything about this strike you as peacekeeping?
But his Western counterparts call it a barbaric, heinous act that will not go unpunished. Welcome.
Or a terrible, horrible, no good year.
To our special coverage here on RT International. I'm Rory Sushi, by the way. So Russia's president has announced that operation, this military operation, to defend the Donbass. It's during an address to the nation that he made this. It's after the two newly recognized republics requested Russia's assistance.
So he arbitrarily and unilaterally recognized these two new republics to give them legal sanction. So in doing that, he's saying the rest of the world, it doesn't matter what you think. I unilaterally recognize them, and now they called for help, so I am going to bring them aid. But in fact, so that's in his bizarro world. He's putting on a cloak of legality, and that's not real legality.
Which they did against what they called military aggression from Ukraine. Russia's defense ministry says the operation poses no threats to civilians and only military infrastructure is
no threat to civilians and only military infrastructure is being attacked?
Being targeted here at RT International.
Wow. Wow. I don't even know what to say to that.
We're working very hard to confirm just that. In the meantime, Western powers are now rounding on Moscow for what they call an invasion. They are threatening severe reprisals.
Because they're actually using the textbook definition of what is an invasion.
Let's cross live now to our senior correspondent, Murad Diaz, standing by for us in Lugansk. Murad, it's been a tough day for you. As I understand, it's been roughly 12 hours of violence and really a fair amount of terror where you've been down there. Bring us up to speed. What is the situation now?
It's been a year of Russian violence and a year of Russian terror.
Well, after this morning's artillery saturation barrage, which is what they call the military terminology for the artillery barrage that precedes an offensive to soften up your opponent's positions. After that, things have quietened down a bit in the city of Lugansk, that is. So we aren't seeing many explosions in the city or any at all these last few hours. For the first time in days, the fighting has moved on further north. Behind me, that is where Ukrainian positions have stretched for 7 years, was 3 kilometers into enemy lines. There have been reports that certain Ukrainian troops formations have surrendered, that there have been those that have come out, but among those there haven't been any nationalists. We have heard that it is them, nationalists and neo-Nazi battalions.
Yeah, you can't find nationalist neo-Nazis because there aren't neo-Nazis, or not like some conspiracy of neo-Nazis. That's the thing. A year later, where are the neo-Nazis? Like, show us the evidence of where are the neo-Nazis. Like, so in World War II, when Hitler was a Nazi, all of the people were proudly Nazis. And you could say, are you a Nazi? And they'd say, yes, we're Nazis. If you ask Ukrainians, where are the Nazis? They're like, there's no Nazis here. What are you talking about? It's a fabrication, and you're going to war on this big lie.
Such as Azov Battalion, that are putting up the stiffest resistance here in eastern Ukraine and other parts of Ukraine too. But yes, as you mentioned, the Russian Ministry of Defense has come out, and the Russian Minister of Defense has issued a wrap-up of what has happened over the past 12 hours. According to him, more than 70 sites that are critical to Ukrainian military infrastructure have been targeted and destroyed. Worth bearing in mind here is that the minister also said that even when Russian jets or missiles, precision strikes as they call them, target Ukrainian bases, they made an effort not to target, for example, houses that house officers. So as to
They made an effort, but didn't really do so hot, did they? I mean, what we know over the course of the year is they're not that great.
not harm their families or children, wives, and they've limited their airstrikes and cruise missile strikes. We've seen caliber missiles streaming through the skies over Ukraine, filmed by many people. They have been targeting, again, as I say, military infrastructure, anti-air defense
Well, they devastated that military kiosk, so good on them.
sites, as well as airfields. 11 airfields have been taken out of action, according to the Russian side. More than a dozen S-300 anti-air defense complexes, which were seen as a threat in the months preceding this by many analysts. As one helicopter was shot down, according to the Russians, and also 4 Bayraktar TB2 drones supplied by Turkey. Obviously, we have no idea what the civilian or what the military death toll has been so far in the wider range of things, but judging...
Well, you're going to find out in the next few days, and it's going to be severely bad for Russia.
Murad, you described some of the numbers there. You say 70 military infrastructure targets have been annihilated, these sites destroyed, 11 airfields as well. You mentioned more than a dozen S-300s, the S-300 being there, more than a dozen of them. That might explain why the Ukrainian air defense systems and the pilots as well, everything which is basically grounded. The S-300 has this electronic warfare system that does put down a lot of military hardware in just a switch of a button. I wanted to ask you, Murad, the Russian fighter jets were pounding military infrastructure earlier today. The Russian Ministry of Defense saying it's trying to avoid all civilian casualties, but Western officials...
That's really bizarre that they're claiming that they're actually avoiding civilian casualties, where you'll have reports on the ground in short order of all the civilians that have been injured by this. So, I mean, like, lying from day one. That's what we see.
There's a warning of a bloodbath right now, Murad. How much longer is this special military operation going to go on for?
That's a good question.
Well, the interesting thing here is that Ukrainian press and this has been confirmed by the Kremlin as well as by the Belarusian president, say that President Zelensky of Ukraine was aware that this invasion was being planned, and that he was offered a choice: either recognize the two breakaway republics, their independence, and relinquish any claims to Crimea, or this will happen. According to, again, unverified reports, because we haven't heard any statements from the Ukrainian president, according to unverified reports, he rejected this after a telephone call with authorities in Great Britain. There are now reports that he has been offered the choice again, given 12 hours, and told that this could all stop if he signs the Minsk III, a new peace accord.
So this could all stop in 12 hours if Zelensky just relinquishes this territory that we are recognizing, essentially stealing from Ukraine. So how long will it go? Well, as soon as Zelensky comes to his senses, that's what they're saying.
If he federalizes, gives autonomy to eastern provinces, eastern regions of Ukraine, which are traditionally anti-NATO and pro-Russian, and also, again, relinquishes any claim to Crimea. Again, this is unverified. Nevertheless, we have seen Ukrainian officials come out and say that they doubt that Putin would target civilians or civilian infrastructure, because he wants public support in Ukraine. He doesn't want to turn the people.
He wants public support in Ukraine. How about that? So he's not going to target civilians. It's la-la land.
People against him. Russian defense minister coming out telling officers that are participating in this operation that they must respect and they must treat with respect any Ukrainian prisoners of war. He also said that they have been able to establish lines of communication with.
And they historically, over this last horrible, terrible, no good year, have not treated any Ukrainian prisoners with respect. I mean, there's been atrocity after atrocity.
With Ukrainian military regulars, so that's the regular army, and they have been, they have been communicating. There have been those that have elected to put down their weapons and to leave. The Russian offer was to any Ukrainian trooper that they could put down their guns, that they would be able to leave, go back to their families, and nobody would stop them or cause them any trouble. And
the Ukrainian counteroffer was to pick up their own guns and say, guess what, you're going to leave our land. And it hasn't taken yet, but it's been a year. Now that's a fascinating thing. It's been a year. What the entire Western world was looking at this going, oh no, what's going to happen to Ukraine? Because like even the United States thought, their estimate was, apparently we found this out a few weeks, they could last a few weeks and maybe that's it. But a year later, they're still fighting. And that's the remarkable thing. So I want to turn to President Zelensky's address.
Now, I posted on YouTube a separate video that is just the full text of Zelensky's speech and then a little of my commentary. So I would highly recommend that you watch that video next. Now, here's what I said after the speech.
Now, let me give you an analogy of what I perceive has happened over the past year. So there's a man walking down the street. It's a dark city. There's very little light, and he's walking with his little 5-year-old girl, walking her home, and it's kind of a damp night. It's kind of cold, and there are 3 thugs kind of surround him from different perceptions, and he's looking around, going, "Uh-oh!" Like he's got his 5-year-old with him. One has some kind of stick or baton or something. Another one has a chain, and the third has a machete. And so he's surrounded on 3 sides. He's got to protect her, and they start fighting. And he's doing everything he can to keep her safe while he's trying to defend himself and hopefully inflict some blows. So there's a guy in a window upstairs. His name is Mr. O, and he realizes what's going on. He looks out the window, and let's call Mr. O. Let's call him Nate. And Nate throws him a baseball bat. Now he has something to defend himself with. And he actually knocked out one of the 3 guys. The guy with the chain, he's no longer in the process. You still have to worry about the guy with the pole and the guy with the machete. But now he's got a fair fight. And Nate's up there looking for other weapons to throw out the window to him. But that's what's happened. He's surrounded. He's got to defend himself. He's got to defend his little girl. And he's got to make it happen. It's been a horrible, no good, rotten, terrible year. But I think next year is going to be better. And I think time is on Ukraine's side. I think Zelensky's right. There is a high probability of his success, and the moral victory has already been achieved. Thank you for listening to me today, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.